Well, good evening, everybody. We're back here on Lone Oak Farms for another episode. I say good evening because that tends to be the time of day when I'm able to record, but hope you're having a good day wherever you're at, whatever you're doing. Maybe kind of like I've done previously, we can start on the map and I can share a few pictures. We kind of left off in the southeast corner, if you will. This area where I'm sitting right here is off the map a little bit. So let me put up a picture here. I think this is the one we saw last time. How do I get it to be full screen? Maybe this up here. So this one here is looking northeast, kind of down at a hazelnut orchard. So it'd be kind of swinging this way. And I'm kind of curious. Obviously, this isn't there in real life. It's a field and there's hazelnuts here, but I'm kind of curious if we can see Mount Hood over there. I'm not sure we can from this angle. Or sometimes what happens is it's hazy enough you can't see the mountain. I can't remember on this particular morning if I was able to see it, but I did notice there appears to be some kind of a bird here. I'm not sure what kind that is. Maybe a hawk. I really can't tell. I guess there's one flying a little bit lower. Now this is looking southwest kind of from the same location. This is a road I've been down hundreds of thousands of times in my life. Well, this one too, I've been up and down many times. It's called State Street. I went to school on, it was further west. The grade school I went to was on State Street. I may get a picture here on the corner, but maybe just in map here, I'll turn around kind of. It's looking this way, and maybe nobody cares because we're off the map. But basically, the road continues. Cascade Highway keeps on going down that way, and then State comes across here. In some ways, it's too bad the map wasn't able to include State. Just wasn't enough room. I'm sure it could have been put in, but then the fields, would have been that much smaller to try to work in. So it's all right, that it isn't there. But that's kind of the direction we're looking. Let me go to the here it is. Yeah, this is State Street as it hits Cascade Highway. Uh, Off in the distance here, it's interesting just looking at this here. I mean, we are up and down this road as a family all the time. We had a child that went to school. There's a school kind of up here in the country hills, and to bring him to school, we come up this road daily, and to pick him up. So that's kind of where we would go for that. And so if I just go back to the map, not that anybody cares, I would be sitting kind of right here, kind of looking off at the hill. And I gotta say, yeah, that's probably pretty close. There's another neighboring farm kind of right up here on the hill that I know my uncles are good friends with, called Ioka Farms. You can look them up. Whoops, I don't know where that came from. We'll go back to our pictures. This is, yeah, looking a little bit south on that same road. Uh, Similar angles as just kind of looking down the road a little bit to the right of frame here. Duplicate. This is looking southwest kind of at that point. So if I go to our map, which some of the ways this is kind of pointless because none of this is playable, but this would be the road along here. And so this would be kind of looking towards this route. But you notice, even off map, this is some of the detail that Bullet Bill and other premier map makers will do. They will stick these objects off the map or these tree facades so that it has the appearance of the map continuing on and on, larger than just what you see in the in game. This is looking due west down State. Again, it isn't playable, so I'll maybe forgo looking at the map. Um, Now this is coming to, I believe the road is 119th. Just behind me to the left would be the road heading in towards Lone Oak Farms. And again, this isn't on a playable part of the map. So this would be traveling down this road here all the way over to here. So now we're kind of at this junction, this corner, we're kind of looking up the road here. I believe that's how it was. Yeah, it kind of curves on around. So I think I took a few pictures here. This is facing south at that intersection. And again, these are just good old country roads. Uh, maybe the tree placement on this was a little bit off. There's a road that would just continue on here. There's kind of a ravine, and the Pudding River flows kind of through here. Got to use your imagination, I guess, because the details aren't here. Um, that's looking towards that. This is looking west, southwest a little bit. There's a lot of deer that roam through here. That's why there's a deer sign to warn motorists. Then there's a fellow over here that has a series of 3 ponds. It's been a landmark there as long as I can remember. And my parents told me one time that they almost purchased some property right here. I had no idea I could have grown up that much closer to Lone Oak Farms. That would have put us within, oh, mile and a half, 2 miles to the main farm, something like that, just due north. But the reason, can you imagine this? The reason they declined to purchase a property was because the Pudding River ran through it, and they were worried with their 5 boys that we might fall in and drown. Well, maybe we would have. I don't know. I think that'd have been pretty cool to grow up next to that. How about you? Here's kind of the ponds. Here's one of them. There's 3 of them kind of in a row. I think this is a larger of the two. Got a light sheen of ice this particular morning. I don't remember how cold it was. It wasn't that cold, but evidently enough to put some ice on the pond. Can't even see it on the map, so I won't bother turning to it. This now is facing north. I think I will go to the map. Lone Oak is straight ahead, and I'll just show you on the map here. Yeah, that is how I have it set up here. So if you look up over the hill, there's the main farm up there, and this is kind of at the corner, just looking up towards it. Now, as long as I've been alive, there's been a stand of timber here, and there's always been a cemetery in here, and that's where both my grandmother, grandfather are buried. I have a few cousins, some uncles in there. You know, America isn't as old of a country, at least in terms of English folks settling it here. Obviously, there was Indians here before, but in terms of the dates, buried in the cemetery here, oh, there may be one that goes back where the birth of the person was before 1800, but that's about where it cuts off. I'm sure over in the UK and Europe, you're used to seeing much older dates, but he kind of in this area gives an indication about when this area would have been settled. So probably somewhere in the early 1840s, 50s, somewhere in there would have been the first folks that would have come into this area, white folks, anyways. So let me go back to picture, see if I think I move ahead. Yeah, now those ponds would be back over here. This is looking kind of southwest. Behind me is the cemetery. So that's kind of another angle. That's due west. This was southwest, due west. This is looking north. There's kind of a dip in here, a little stream. And just kind of right up, partway up this hill is where you hit the edge of the Lone Oak map. Matter of fact, you can see the Lone Oak tree right up here, kind of on the south side of it. Here's the cemetery. And if I was really astute, I could point out my grandmother's grave. Maybe it's in the picture. I almost wonder if it's this one here. Grandfather would be buried beside her now too. I think he had passed long before I took this picture by a number of years. That's looking due east at the cemetery. So maybe I can get up here in the map. And this is just off the edge, but I'm sitting kind of right about here. Always been a peaceful place, and I gotta say, between you and me and the fence post and whoever's listening, I think this is pretty much where I'd like to be planted when it's my turn to go. I don't know if that's something most people think about. I still need to purchase a plot. I hope that doesn't happen for a while. But do any of you ever think about where you'd like to be buried and and why? You know what I would say is as a Christian, it really shouldn't matter, where we're put into the dirt, with the hope that we have inside. But I don't know. I like this place, and a lot of my family's buried here, so I think that's where I'd like to go. And it's interesting. I don't know if I have it in the picture here. Yeah, I think I do. See this headstone right here? I have a great uncle who hasn't passed away yet, but probably for maybe a decade, he bought this headstone, and people thought he was kind of a flake for doing it, and he just put it there. But I think I've heard he's told people this way, every time he drives by, he gets to enjoy seeing his headstone. Well, okay, more power to you. That's probably not something I'm gonna do, but hey, I understand if you're gonna spend a lot of money on a headstone, maybe while you're living you should buy it so you can see it for a little while before taking off. So that's Cemetery, Mount Hope Pioneer Cemetery. I can't quite. Let me see if I can zoom in. So that's a 1849. Yeah, so maybe that's when it was established. Okay, so I wasn't too far off with what I told you a little bit ago. That's kind of the date that it was put in play. So here now we get to the corner. Now we're on the Lone Oak map. So I'm just going to head over to show you where this is. This would be heading up this gravel road and kind of sitting right here in the corner. And we're looking up at Lone Oak Tree. That's kind of where this picture is here in real life. And obviously this is cold. It's in the middle of winter, but you can tell someone this past fall drilled a field with more grass. I'm not sure anything's growing on Lone Oak property over here. Lone Oak doesn't farm this over here. That's someone else. But maybe with that, I'll head in game. Like I say, I don't have no idea just what kind of interest this may be to people. So I'll maybe just try to do a little bit of it each time. And some of these were some of the reference pictures that I sent to Bullet Bill as he was contemplating the map. And some of this was at the wrong time of year for him to have an idea of what the foliage looked like. So I say that just to note that the end result is all the more amazing because of it. I'm sure it was somewhat helpful to have, a few reference pictures and whatnot, but he kind of had to use his imagination to see what it would be like, kind of, during harvest or a different time of year. And maybe before going into the map, there's one other group of pictures I guess I would show. These are from quite some time ago, I would say. They were taken by my grandmother when I worked on the farm, which would have been latter 1980s. I say probably 1989-ish, somewhere in there, through a good chunk of the 1990s. So I don't know what year. This one here doesn't have a year on it, but I mentioned that the primary crop grown by Lone Oak Farms and indeed by most of the farms in the area up in these hills is grass seed. So what you're looking at here appears to be a type of fine fescue. I don't know the specific variety. It just appears to be a fine fescue, and obviously that is the lone oak tree out there in the distance. It looks scarcely different from, those several decades ago to how it appears now. Maybe the canopy is a little bit larger, but that thing has weathered ice storms, snowstorms, windstorms. It has taken all kinds of beating from the weather, and it's still standing. So I'm assuming it'll continue to be standing until long after I'm gone. But this is kind of what it looks like just before harvest. You see all this grass. It's headed out with seed, and the seed obviously is the part that we're interested in when we harvest it. So it's just about ready to be cut and swathed, and I'll show some pictures on that at some later time. I just wanted to show what the fields with grass kind of look like. Here's a shot. If this is up to the tree, if we turn 90 degrees kind of to the left, here's the main farm down there. Now this one here is labeled 1991. This stuff looks very ripe and just ready to put down with the windrower. But you'll notice if you look over here, here's the house. That part hasn't changed, although it is before a major addition that they put onto the side. That's the old red barn. No changes there. But you don't see the shop building or the big straw shed that they have here currently. Back in the 90s, that simply didn't exist. We just farmed out there in the field, where it's currently sitting. This appears to be a type of tall fescue. Just judging from that, I seem to remember it was kind of what was it called? A junior tall fescue. So it wasn't as tall as it could be, but if you weighed out in this, I think it could easily be chest high or greater when it's at its full height. This looks like it has a little bit of ripening to do before it gets put down, but it shows you when you got a whole field of it, it looks just beautiful. Yeah, it's kind of a bad picture. Yeah, okay, here's a picture of probably that same Talfa SQ when it's closer to being ripe. Obviously, it's yellower and its seeds are heavy for harvest. So, without further ado, maybe I'll just hop in game for a little bit. I got it all queued up. I gotta try to remember kind of where we were. I think I got rid of the glance mod, so hopefully we don't have hopefully we don't have any errors popping in here now. And hear all those birds. I don't know if anybody saw the modding video or when that'll come up relative to this one here, but some time ago, a fella I met on FSUK, Kim G, made a special effort for this map to put bird sounds of the birds that live in this area, Oregon birds, if you will, and oops, I need to put that down before I continue. Maybe I'll just hire him so get him going. But he found a whole bunch of sounds of Oregon birds and he sent them to me, and it was a massive file. I mean, we're talking at least half a gigabyte of all these different kinds of birds. And not only did he generously send this to me, he also took pains to specifically place them all over the map. So up in these trees, up in here, there are scores and probably over 100 different birds that he's placed. Starlings and robins and western meadowlark and all these birds. And I can't say I'm a bird guy, but that was a lot of effort to go to, and I'm kind of half embarrassed to say that by the time he sent it to me, we were already transitioning out of the map, and I didn't take time at that time to put it in. But so I'm kind of glad to have a series here where I could install all those, and I have a separate video that kind of shows how those were put into the map. But he did most of the work, in terms of tracking down those sounds, and then it's specifically placing them in the map. All I had to do was take his i3p file and insert it into the map, and boom, they were all ready to go. So really appreciate that, Kim G. I don't know if you'll ever see this video, but thanks a bunch. So we're cultivating here, and I guess we'll keep him going on this. Like I've talked a little bit about that there's a lot of field operations that tend to take place on these hill fields. It isn't as simple as some of the dirt can be down on the flatter land, where a lot of times those guys will disc it up to chop the soil up a little bit and then plow it under, that kind of thing. And there's nothing like a mold board to just turn over all the old stubble and be ready to go with the new. But up here, it isn't quite that simple, so there tends to be a few more passes over it at any given time. And I think I also fixed the keybind from last time for the rocks. So let me see here. Maybe what I have to do is, I bet that's what it is. I gotta take it off higher. Yeah, I got that slash up there. Lock level 2. Well, I don't know. Now it's off. Maybe I'll put it on medium. I probably should have had this on in the chisel plow. I just kept forgetting to change my keybind, which interfered with my recording software. So now I put it on a different keybind. I can up the amount of rocks that'll be popped out of here. Oh, I just enjoy it every time I come in here, and it's just, we all know this is just a game, right? But he did such a marvelous job. Even back here, kind of in this area, it's second growth timber, if you will. They logged this a number of years ago, and it's growing back. And in the map, Ola Bill duplicated what he saw, kind of in the reference pictures. The trees, kind of in this area, just aren't as tall as some of the others because they're second growth. That's kind of how it is in real life. It isn't as tall as some of those down there, which they preserved. And it's going to take this fella quite a bit of time to to do all the cultivating. Maybe I need a bigger cultivator. I don't know. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, you know what? I guess I could go. Let me get rid of this nuisance here. I'll pick up the last rock. Oh, if only I was as strong in real life. I gotta say, I enjoyed the summers working up there. Whoops. Yeah, I'm not that strong in game either. Let me see if I can give it a heave-ho. I think it's a right mouse button heave-ho. Oh, come on, get over there. All right, so maybe if I have a little finesse when I drive the truck. Let's see here. There we go. We got it. What's interesting is I drive this truck, and I'll just take this down and empty it. I don't know if we have any others. Oh, by George, we do. Or it says we do. Did I miss one up here at the top of the hill? Maybe that was on... You know what? That's the first pass. That's probably what that is. I'll just take this down and empty it out. It's interesting when I drive this thing. You see how all the rocks kind of collect in the back. It's challenging to make dynamic objects in a game like this with simulated physics. When I first made the Rock Spawn mod, I was in Farmstead 15. Some of those silly rocks, if you were on a hillside and you cranked out a rock, those silly things would roll down the hill, just like it was a marble on a tabletop. And I didn't like that because I don't care how steep the hill is, whenever you dig a rock out of it, it's generally going to stay put. It'll be kind of embedded in the soil or what have you. And it just isn't going to, just roll downhill like that. So I remember learning all kinds of physics terms, monkeying with the i3D objects to try to get them to stay put on the hill. Eventually I figured out how to do it. But for whatever reason, they don't move very... There we go. $3 or $4 a piece. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure why I even put any value on the game, to be honest. Just made the fill type not worth very much. So you can't even hardly buy a coffee anymore with that. But there is one particular rock, and I'm not sure what the odds are of it digging up. But it's a little gold rock, and I think if you sell that one, you'll maybe get a few thousand or something. But there's not that many of them around. And no, there is no gold on Lone Oak Farms. There is coal. You know, if you dig down in here, I think I was describing that on a previous video. Uh, if you dig down a certain depth, and I'm not sure what that is, there's coal. There's a band of coal, several feet thick. There's a seam of it, good old hard coal, but evidently not enough commercial grade that it's worthwhile to go after it. So I was just going to come over here. A number of years ago, I think kind of right here, right where the nose of the truck is. Let me have to check my pictures. I think it's still there. They drilled a well, and and I distinctly remember that. I was working on the farm at the time, and we had these guys out there drilling a well. And I don't remember how far down they got, but they went through several feet of coal, and they were bringing all this material to the surface, and it was just kind of funny to see that, you know, see all that black stuff littered out there, kind of on the dirt. So definitely coal mineral in the area and hard rock, that kind of thing. No gold. The gold, if you will, is in the family relationships and memories that I have every time I think of this place. You know, what I mentioned um, making the rocks on mod, and I don't know if it's of interest to anybody. You know, as you look out here, there's going to be a bunch more rocks that show up. But one of the things I did in the Farm Sim 17 version is I created kind of some auto loading capability. So, you know, if you have right control R, it's to unload, left control R is to auto load. And I don't know if anybody remembers, they're back to FS15, but you couldn't do that with just any trailer. I mean, you could set it up, but what you would notice is the rock would load and it would sit. Well, if I just kind of right click, it would sit kind of in midair right above the trailer. And that's based on how trailers and such were set up back then. You know, the collisions, if you will, was just this one hard object that took up the whole thing. Well, as modding changed over time, as we got into Farm Sim 17, now the collisions would follow the specific contours of the trailer. So that's what allows us to put the rocks kind of in the trailer itself. Oh, I have a nasty cold while I'm doing this, and my apologies for how that may sound. So anyway, I'll try to show this just real quick in case anybody's interested. If you start auto loading, that'd be left control R. So now it's loading, and then another binding shows up, left control S, which shows kind of the area, if you will, that it's going to look for rocks. So if we tootle up here, this hopefully will grab the rock once it slips inside. Boom, there it goes. So, so yeah, maybe we'll take this up here. Don't even really need to look at. I'll turn it off for a moment. It was just a fun mod to make. And like I say, I must have rocks in my head. You know, some of the work I'm still doing in Farm Sim 15 is heavily involved with rocks, rocks, and more rocks. All sorts of scripts to get them to appear where you don't want to have them and have to mess with them. But what can I say? There was a lot of rocks on Lone Oak Farm. I picked up a lot of them and disposed of a lot of them, so I figured we could have that mod kind of working in here. I think I mentioned why I chose to have this little combine kind of to start off this series. Maybe later I'll switch to another combine. I mainly like this one because it's a hillside, though it's totally unrealistic. You would never see a Fiat aggregate on these hills, but that's kind of what we'll use for the first go around here. So, well, I just looking at the clock here, it appears I've gone a half an hour, so I think I'll let everybody go. Hopefully I'm not boring anybody to tears, and thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time.